Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at the astrology of October. It is a very big month. We have especially powerful in the month ahead. It is eclipse season, so we have our first of two eclipses that are coming through, and we also have Mars turning retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So massive. Those are very powerful events. They both are coming toward the end of the month, but everything's ramping up toward them throughout the month of October. And so that's what we'll be watching for. And Yeah, we're going to go through a whole bunch of other transits too that should also be quite powerful. So that's where we're heading today. Don't forget, before we get started, like and subscribe, share a comment. All helps the channel to grow. You can find transcripts of my daily talks on the website, as you guys know, nightlightastrology.com. Also, my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins on November 12th. We have registrations rolling in now, and I'm really excited to start in a year of study with all of those of you who have already signed up. Thank you. And I hope to see some more people signing up. The class starts on November 12th. You can learn more about it on my website, nightlightastrology.com. And once you're there, go to the first year course under the courses tab, scroll down, and you can learn about everything that is included in the class. You can hear from some alumni and what they have to say. There's 30 classes on the year. They are all recorded. So if you can't make the live webinars on Saturdays, no big deal. The webinars happen from noon to about 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, but they are all recorded and you can follow along at your own pace. You get to keep everything, download everything. You have lifetime access to all the material in the course. There's, outside of the 30 classes that I lead, the core curriculum, we also have 12 guest teachers. We have an interactive group forum discussion that's led by tutoring staff. We have breakout study sessions with tutoring staff, lots of bonus materials. So there's just a ton there to learn from. Especially good for people who really want to develop a practice. If you are looking to offer astrology readings for other people, this program will prepare you to do that. It's also a great program for people who just love astrology and want to take their learning of astrology to the next level. Check out the early bird payment. You can save $500 off. There's a payment plan. If you want to stretch the tuition out over 12 payments of the course of the year, you can do that. We also have need-based tuition. So the need-based tuition option is there for people who, for whatever reason, can't make the price point of the class because of your life situation. Tell us about your situation, and we'd be glad to help you out. We just ask that people do that early so that we're not bombarded with all of the applications in the last week when things are really busy and we're already hustling to get everyone set up. It takes a little bit longer to process those tuition assistance applications. So apply early and we'll be glad to try to help you out. Try to make sure no one's ever priced out of taking an astrology course from any of my programs anyway. Well, all of that being said, let's get into the astrology of October. There is a ton to talk about, and we are going to start. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to start with an early transit, which happens right away on the first day of the month, and that is Venus in Libra working through an opposition to Jupiter in Aries. First of all, when it comes to making allegiances, finding beneficial connections or friends, helpers and allies, this is a fantastic transit. Any configuration between Venus and Jupiter will often pits together the planet of good fortune in Venus with a planet in Jupiter that was associated with allies, benefactors, and helpful spirits. And so good fortune and helpful spirits coming together. Now, one thing you have to be a little bit careful of with Venus opposite Jupiter is the tendency for extravagance or, going over the top with something Venusian, or, I guess you could say when something that is supposed to be substantive becomes rather superficial. Those kinds of shadows do come up when Venus is opposite Jupiter. But overall, this has the feeling of, a good meeting between these two planets. Also, one thing to watch for would be, the two different styles of the planets when it comes to our intimate or romantic relationships. Venus in Libra, poised, diplomatic, balanced, fair-minded, lofty. Jupiter in Aries is a little bit more, you could say it's sort of athletic and sweaty, muscular. It's like more like a battering ram. So the two styles may clash a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if someone found an ally that was, less than, it's almost like you find someone or something that's very helpful, but socially, you might feel embarrassed by someone that you also at the same time feel is a very wonderful new friend or ally. It's like, that's just an example, but the pairing is a little bit awkward with Libra and Aries maybe, but otherwise I really like this transit to start the month. Let's go on. October 2nd, Mercury turns direct in Virgo. So you're going to see that starting of the forward motion of Mercury, and I'll point that out right here. So, when Mercury stations and turns direct, it often feels like things that we have been working on for, say, 3 weeks plus are suddenly reaching a point of, like if you've been waiting for something, you're no longer waiting. If you've been working on something, you're completing whatever you've been working on. A turning point for Mercury that is pretty positive, especially considering that Mercury is very well dignified in Virgo. So you get that feeling. Mercury is stationing in an opposition with Neptune. So I also wonder about clarity starting to return after the potential for a kind of romantic or otherworldly or imaginative fog to have been covering us. Mercury opposite Neptune is, highly imaginative. And I think especially when it comes to words, thoughts, ideas, and the intellect is going to be just covered in the beauty of, like, if you fall in love with a subject that you want to study or learn while Mercury is opposite Neptune, that could be a wonderful thing. But it's also like, let's say you find, I've been really into this game called Wordle. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Wordle. You get really into something like Wordle and you're just completely inundated by the fascination with this game. It's a very mercurial thing. And you're like, I'm in Wordle land every day. And then after a while, you're like, yeah, that's fun. Kind of the sparkliness wears off a little bit. So things that have been capturing your imagination, you might see them start to wear off, or you might start to move on from something that had just sort of captured you temporarily. Those are the kinds of things I would watch for as Mercury's turning direct. On October 8th, Pluto also turns direct. I don't have a lot to say about outer planets turning direct, other than in this case, what's interesting is with Pluto at 26 degrees, and you can see here on October 8th, the little S for the station there. That's the stationing direct. When Pluto turns direct, in my experience, there will, especially if it's been aspecting planets in your chart, you're going to notice that this turning point starts to release you from a deep or intense internal process. That's one of the things that I would note about the retrograde. It's taking us down. It's taking us inward. It's taking us into the depths of a place psychically, emotionally, maybe even physically. Then it releases, it starts moving direct. And, with this direct movement, now comes its entrance into Aquarius in this next direct movement. So it does feel like I wanted to mention it this month. I don't always mention outer planets stationing or turning retrograde, but it felt important because this one is kind of monumental. This turning of direct movement marks a transition that's about to come. So what is getting finished up on a very deep level with a lot of history right now, and that direct motion takes it forward in a pretty powerful way, all the way into March when it enters Aquarius. All right, well, October 9th, just one day later, fittingly, I guess, the moon will be full in Aries. So you're seeing this moon-sun opposition that is the full moon, and you're seeing it also opposite Venus across the wheel. To me, this, furthers the kind of Libra and Aries oppositional tension that's been in the air throughout both the month of September and now October. I would say that a full moon in Aries is about going forward in our own way. It's a very individualistic, blaze your own trail, be a pioneer, take a risk, assert yourself, be your own kind of person transit. But with the oppositional tension from the Sun and Venus and Libra, it's like, well, don't forget that there is a social reality, that you are beholden to other people, that your social, your P's and Q's sometimes matter, and that there might be a diplomatic consideration that you have to make. But that energy will be very strong in the direction, that full moon, in the direction of, I'll do it my own damn way. It's kind of a go it alone type of thing. And I think the other thing to think about during this time, because really just a few days later on October 12th, Mars in Gemini will be square to Neptune in Pisces, and Mars is the host or dispositor of the full moon. So you can see there's the full moon in Aries, but at the same time, you've got Mars in Gemini moving into the square with Neptune in Pisces. So what I would say about this is that whatever that do it my own way, whatever form it's coming in from the full moon in Aries, it's also being informed by something that Mars is completely enamored with, something that Mars has, something that Mars feels is heroic in an otherworldly sense. For example, I was born with a Mars opposition to Neptune in my natal chart, and I have always been completely enamored by the gods of the gridiron, football, basketball. So I love sports. This is kind of like that, where the action movie or the athletic figure somehow takes on that godlike quality. They start shimmering with the glory of Neptune. And that full moon in Aries will be really compelling us in the direction of what we find to be, heroic, something we might die for or sacrifice for heroically, something that we feel is, it's kind of like, it's like Mars stuff will be idolized potentially. So we get to really watch for that right around the full moon, and watch where it's trying to take us, because it can also, we can fall in love to the point of falling asleep at times when Neptune gets in the mix. So at the same time, sometimes we need to fall out of our right mind and completely be enamored by the beloved in whatever way the beloved arrives. If it's through a Mars, like an Aryan full moon with a Mars Neptune square, then I guess that's what we'll fall in love with. We'll see. October 14th, Venus in Libra will trine Saturn in Aquarius. This has a very interesting feel to it. Go forward here, about halfway through the month now. You're seeing Venus trining Saturn. This is about October 14th. And this is happening, by the way, this is happening as Venus is also preparing to enter into a trine with Mars. So if we flash forward just a little bit to the 18th, 4 days later, Venus in Libra will also be trining Mars in Gemini. So 2 trines that Venus is going to be making to both Mars and Saturn, who are also configured in a trine to each other. So we have kind of a nice big airy trine going on. October 14th, the moon is even in Gemini. And Mars is getting ready to station and turn retrograde. It's a very interesting flashpoint in the month, this little grand air trine configuration that's sort of loosely configured. I really wonder about appearances and looking at things from an objective, cool, rational, level-headed standpoint, and sorting through a variety of perceptions. Probably all of the perceptions that we have of a situation or some place in our life that we're looking at, we're gathering a lot of different kind of information and trying to be sensitive and careful about decisions that we're making, trying to be objective and somewhat detached, but also sensitive to what is pleasing and what is desirable. So I feel like, Venus being so empowered in her own sign, the sun coming through those trines to Saturn and Mars as well, it feels like a moment where there's a lot to process this month. There's a lot of mental, intellectual information, planning, strategizing. And it's nice to have the temperance of Venus in Libra, the sun in Libra, there to help us try to find the balance. So that's what I'm seeing as kind of this airy middle of the month. Sun in Libra trines Mars in Gemini. On the 18th, Venus in Libra trines Mars in Gemini. On the 19th, Sun in Libra then goes into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. And this is, to me, where it's like, there's almost like I'm just going to fast forward this a little bit so we can get up to this date. So here you can see the sun, and then Venus comes in the next day. So on the 19th, it's the sun in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. The next day, on the 20th, it is Venus. So sun squares Pluto, then Venus squares Pluto. Now, to me, remember I just said that I think this big airy configuration in the middle of the month is, it's like we're getting ready for Mars to turn retrograde in Gemini, where there is a whole lot of rethinking or re-strategizing or a redoing of mercurial things. It's Mars retrograde in Gemini, to me, is like potentially a very fast and action-oriented Mercury retrograde that lasts a really long time. I know that probably doesn't sound very nice, but so if there's a lot to be sorted out, and we're sort of preparing ourselves for that, and all this little configuration of planets in Libra is trying to make sure that we are not just being heady and smart, but that we are, presentation matters, beauty and aesthetics matter, being pleasing to others matter, being diplomatic and having the approval of other people probably matters. This is interesting, though, because then when you hit these squares to Pluto, it's like, if we have any kind of motivations that we are not showing to other people that are inherently self-centered. Like, for example, I think of a marketing team sitting down and trying to figure out the best way to solve a tricky, complicated issue with a product and how to present it in the right way, and maybe before bringing it to market or something, and there's complicated issues with how to present it. The market research says and stuff like that. I would be very careful of these two transits right around the 19th and 20th, where the sun and Venus squares Pluto and Capricorn, of decisions being made with a Machiavellian kind of bottom line ruthlessness under the surface. Do whatever, make it look whatever way is most expedient, or whatever is going to be the biggest power play. See, it's like anytime you have the Libran planets squaring Pluto and Capricorn, you can get the velvet glove over the iron fist. And so I would be very careful of, what are our underlying motivations, or how is power, greed, domination, the need to win, like how are those things informing the way we're trying to look or make something appear? I would be careful about that. And honesty is going to be a really important feature of that transit. There's something here also about justice and the balancing of the scales karmically that I think is right around the 19th or 20th of the month, which makes sense since we are coming right up on an eclipse. October 22nd, Venus is then cazimi at the heart of the sun in the critical 29th degree of Libra. This, to me, feels like a real moment of karmic reckoning and balance, rebalancing, or almost like a debt being paid off, or a moment of something being given its fair due. At the same time, I look at this configuration and I think, well, you could see the quintessential empowerment of Venus. Venus is being given the power of the throne, with the sun being like the king. So some kind of very empowered moment for a woman, or even the death of a famous woman or something like that. But this also has almost like the moment of a transference of power behind it. Something like that. And maybe the balancing of karmic scales or history that are coming together somehow. Now, October 23rd, Saturn turns direct, which is nice from the standpoint of it's square to Uranus. It's going to start to move on from that square to Uranus, which I think everyone will sort of rejoice to have those two planets starting to move away from their square configuration to one another. I've talked about that recently, the Saturn-Uranus square, and kind of final reflections on that transit. But yeah, that's the gist of it. On October 23rd, Venus enters Scorpio, and the sun also enters Scorpio. So you go forward one day and you've got both of them together. Now, this is under a balsamic moon. Venus is still cazimi. And then you go to October 25th, and you're getting that configuration of the sun Venus, and now we're going to add to that the conjunction of the moon at the new moon, which makes a partial solar eclipse. So we are including that in our horoscopes for the month. Here is the solar eclipse. It's a south node solar eclipse with Venus. This feels like a major moment of transformation for Venusian things. A major challenge, for example, you could see in love and relationships, sexuality and intimacy. You could also see a moment of, positive catharsis around sex and love and romance. This is I think it's a very creative transit. The host of this eclipse is Mars. This is Scorpio is a Mars ruled sign. Mars is about to turn retrograde in Gemini again. And Mars is in a square with Neptune as it is making that, as it's about to turn retrograde. So there's the square between Mars and Neptune. Got a solar eclipse in Mars's sign as Mars is about to turn retrograde and go back through the square to Neptune. There is something that we feel, we're captured by a cause, a mission, something that we feel heroically drawn toward, an entrepreneurial endeavor. Mars likes to take risks, and it's moved by things that feel bold and brave and daring and maybe even rash and sort of severe. This eclipse is in Scorpio with Venus. It's like there's something we love that we want or desire, and we're just completely taken in by it. And it's something that, with passion, we're going to start moving toward. But there's probably this whole period of revision that has to go into it. That's the upcoming Mars retrograde. Before this passion can be acted upon, there's this whole consideration that goes into it. And we might be having to revise or rethink or reconsider the dreams and images that we are most attracted to, or the kinds of things that we feel are worthy of putting a lot of time and energy into. What do I want to put my time and energy into? What gives pleasure? What fulfills that need for passion in my life? These kinds of questions are going to be, really strong behind this eclipse. And things that are boring or dead, or things that don't grab our will and our enthusiasm, those kinds of things probably starting to shed off after this eclipse. But this eclipse in Scorpio is also, with Venus, and there's a feeling of like maybe some kind of desire that we have to relinquish or let go of because it's unhealthy. Like this, you could see a configuration like this when someone decides to go to rehab, or when someone decides to give up drinking or something, or a person decides to take a period of celibacy, something like that. So it's a tremendously powerful eclipse for dealing with desires, both generation of new desires and things that we are becoming enamored by, but it's going to be a bit of a process to pursue those things. Or it could be about revising or reworking the things that we're in love with, that we want or desire, and relinquishing some of them. Those are some of the things that come to my mind anyway. All right. Well, October 27th, Mercury in Libra will then square Pluto. This is a big moment for truth-telling, for information coming to the surface that may have been hidden. It is a moment of power for Mercury and great depth for Mercury, but also, again, I could see this being a little cloak and dagger, a little manipulative, using best appearances for the sake of something that's ultimately sort of ruthless and dark. I could see there being loopholes legally during a transit like this that allow something or someone unjust to get away with something, or something like that. Mercury square to Pluto here also strikes me as, now this is in the process of Mercury starting to rise as a morning star. So Mercury's in a sense coming out of the underworld. What does it have to share with us? This to me is almost like in receipt of a message, and that message has now changed my life, or that message is now in the process of, how do I share it, or how do I broadcast it or bring it out, or something like that. But it's Mercury and Pluto will come with a message to us, and that message will be powerful and deep and may reveal things that were hidden, stuff like that. So anyway, finally, on October 28th, Jupiter retrogrades back into Pisces. So you can see actually in the same picture right here, here's Jupiter back into Pisces. So it's going to shift whole sign houses in our birth charts, and we'll be visiting that later in the month. But that shift will bring us back into a very watery place with Pisces, which should be interesting. And I think be a nice it'll be a nice, it's perfect if you're an astrologer to notice these times, because that's when you really start to take note of the difference between Jupiter in, say, Pisces or Aries. It's when it changes signs back and forth a few times. It's really helpful to just start to understand the difference between what a Jupiter in Aries feels like compared to a Jupiter in Pisces. On October 29th, Mercury will enter Scorpio. It gets a little cloak and dagger in Mars's sign, while Mars is also going to be, turning retrograde the next day in Gemini. Now I look at that and I go, ooh, that starts to feel a little cloak and dagger, because you've got Mercury under the beams about to emerge into daylight where everyone can see, but Mercury is also in a mutual reception with Mars. Mars is about to turn retrograde. It's as though there's an announcement to be made. There's something that's going to be seen or that's going to come forth. It feels like some things that are hidden or have been in the works behind the scenes are going to show themselves and then cause this need for an overhaul or a revision or a lot of reactions that come in the wake of what these planets bring forth. So, and I think we're really going to feel that by about the end of the month, because again, right on the 30th, when Mars stations, turns retrograde into like Halloween, at that time, then, we've got, did I say, I think I might've said that Mercury was rising as the morning star. And I think I was looking at my chart backward, which I apologize. So yeah, Mercury is under the beams and in the process of changing positions into the evening star position, which still bears the same mark, which would be that it's going through the journey in the underworld and in the process of coming out. But here's actually, if you want to actually see when it has something to share or reveal, that's actually a little bit down the line. You're going to start to see that when Mercury gets separation. So here's pretty interesting. It's like right, like right about this time. This is like the early part of December. And what's interesting about that is that right before it sort of comes out as the evening star, it passes through the opposition to Mars as well. So, but the whole idea is still the same, even though I messed that up a little bit. Sorry, guys. The idea being that, with Mercury going into Scorpio under the beams of the sun, mutual reception with Mars, it's as though there are some things happening behind the scenes, which we're not going to see until later in the retrograde. So, and you may start to be working on things behind the scenes that then come out a little bit later. There's so much more to say about that retrograde, though, that I'm just giving you a little bit of a few brief notes today, and we will be revisiting the Mars retrograde in Gemini in a much more focused way at the end of October. So we'll do some horoscopes for that as well this month. All right. Well, that is what I have for today. A little overview of October. I hope you guys are having a good week and are excited for the month ahead. I can't believe it's already October. It's strange. But anyway, before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe, share a comment, tell us how you've been doing. If you have any stories you would like to share, use the hashtag grabbed or email us grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. I'll be glad to feature some of your stories in an upcoming grabbed episode. So that's what I've got for today. I hope you guys have a great month of October. Take it easy. Bye.